When I was younger, I played sports like soccer and basketball. I was never very good at either one. I kind of sucked at both, and I never really liked playing them. I just played them for fun, and so I never felt the need to get better at them. But then one day, I found this video game, and it changed my life because it introduced me to the sport called hockey. And that video game was called NHL 2009. That year, I also was into the Winter Olympics, and the U.S. played Canada in the 2010 Winter Olympics, and that kind of sparked my hatred for Canada because they beat the U.S. Another thing that happened was Patrick Kane and the Hawks won the 2010 Stanley Cup, and that really was fun for me because I got to watch it and get into it for the first time I'd ever felt compelled to watch a sport. Then I started playing hockey. I really sucked in the beginning, and so that almost made me want to play more because I realized that I needed to work harder, and so I did. I really liked the sport, so I decided that this is what I'm going to focus all my energy into, and so I started to play a lot more, and I started to get better. And as I started to get better, I felt the need to play more because I really loved this sport, and it was the first time I'd ever loved a sport. And so I played more and more, and I got better and better, and I started to realize that this is something that I want to do day in and day out. And so I did, and I still do to this day. I play as much as I can, and it's changed my life. One thing that hockey has taught me is what a long drive is, and so I decided to draw a graph to show you what I mean. By the time I was 7, going to school, which is about 4 miles, seemed like a long drive. And then by the time I became 9, going to Evanston, which is about 15 miles, seemed like a long drive. And then by the time I became 11, going to Rockford, which was around 100 miles, seemed like a long drive. And then by the time I became 13, going to Detroit or St. Louis, which is about 300 miles, seemed like a long drive. And just going to school seems like nothing. One thing that a lot of people think is crazy about playing hockey is to travel. Hockey has enabled me to go all over the country and visit all these new places that I might not have ever been able to go to. I've been able to visit multiple different countries just because of hockey. Before I played hockey, the extent of my travel was just going to visit family in Columbus, Naples, Florida, Atlanta, and Milwaukee. And so I'd never really traveled all that much. And when I started playing hockey, I'd started to go to places like South Bend, Green Bay, Detroit, Dallas, and St. Louis. And by this point, I had been so used to traveling that 6-hour drives seemed like nothing. And a couple years passed, and I had gone to places like Peoria, Minneapolis, Rockford, East Alton, Illinois, or the middle of nowhere, PEI, or Prince Edward Island, Canada. And that was the first time I ever got to go out of the country for hockey. And then a couple years later, I was able to go to Stockholm, Sweden, Nyköping, Sweden, London, and Paris. I've never been the most confident kid ever, but when I play hockey, I'm a completely different person, and I tend to be very confident compared to at school, where I'm not the most confident kid ever, and I tend to be a little bit more conscious about myself. One thing that's definitely really helped me become more confident in hockey is all the success I've had. Although sometimes success ends in black eyes, it's still worth it, and I tend to be way more confident on the ice, and just seeing how it makes other people feel when I have this much success with hockey and how much more confident I am on the ice, it makes me feel like sometimes I can be more confident at school.